It's great to talk with Bud Elliott again. You can follow Bud on Twitter at BudElliott3. And Bud, since we last spoke, you've got a new gig. Tell everybody about your new job.
Yeah, David, guys, I appreciate you having me on. I'm now over at 24/7 Sports, so doing the origination editor and the head of podcasts over there. And basically that means I have to originate the ideas that we're going to write about and cover as a network. And right now that's got to be really creative during these times. That's been an interesting couple first months on the job with this pandemic thing.
Well, Bud, I want to start out with the thing you retweeted yesterday, because I saw this morning as, preparing for you coming on the show. We've talked about the pandemic from a sports angle at a multitude of different ways. We've talked about the fact that it's bummed me out more than anything of all these seniors that were unable to graduate high school in a normal way, because I look upon those couple of months as some of the best times I had in my life and feel badly for these kids. But what 24/7 has brought up and what's going on, you've got kids in California right now that may not play a senior football season, and there's a big-time recruit who could even perhaps forego his senior year and go right into college. Now, this is something I'd never even imagined in my wildest dreams, Bud.
Right. There's a couple things happening here. Like if you're a recruit and you're not going to really be able to play your senior year, you can reclassify if you have enough college credits and if you have a test score. We see this in basketball sometimes. We don't see a whole lot of reclassifying in college football, but we do see it occasionally. JT Daniels, the quarterback, the 5-star for USC, who ended up getting hurt in the first game of the year last year, he actually reclassified. He was not originally in that Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields class, and then he ended up having enough credits, and he's like, well, I could probably be the starter at USC at 17 years old, so might as well reclassify and go do that. But so you have that kind of factor. Some of these kids who have a lot of, of course, credits and whatnot, combined with the NCAA is saying, hey, because there's no SAT, ACT testing dates this year, as long as you have your 2.3 and your 10 core classes, and at least 7 of those core classes completed before the end of your junior year, it's called the 10-7 rule, we're going to let you in. So, A, we're having a lot more kids qualified than we normally would because, you don't have to have the qualifying SAT, ACT score this year. And B, some of these kids who have so many course credits, they're looking around and they're saying, well, I mean, I've got the course credits, I've got my core courses. If I think I might not have a senior football season in high school, I'm just going to go ahead and enroll. And so that's what's happening there potentially. But I think that the key piece is the SAT, ACT not being required right now for this given year.
But are we seeing this with kids in many places outside of California, or is this largely a California phenomenon?
It's mostly a California phenomenon, and it's not going to become a wave because most kids do not have their 10 core courses completed, already, right? Like this is kind of a limited thing where a few select kids who maybe are already taking college credit courses or something,
right?
By the time they're juniors, most of your kids out there are nowhere close to being able to do this.
He's Bud Elliott, now with 24/7 Sports. He still co-hosts Nolecast, and you can follow Bud on Twitter at Bud Elliott with 2 L's, 2 T's, and the number 3.
Bud, obviously the other thing that you've been big on is what you're calling a large decommitment season. There have been far more commitments going on, and you think players could drop from them. Why do you think this could be such an alarming rate this year?
Well, just because of the rate at which players are committing. So I pulled some stats from our database, right? This time last year, and basically on May 11th, May 12th, for basically any previous given year, we usually have about 300 committed players, maybe 310, okay? This year, we have 710. So wow. You have all these kids out there scrambling to find spots because I think they saw other players committing. You're like, man, I got to find a spot. Like, are these spots drying up? And they're committing on very limited information. We know for a fact a lot of these kids have never visited the campus to which they're committed. And I'm surprised that some of these schools are willing to take some of these commitments sort of sight unseen. And I think, and I have a good hunch on this, that when the schools finally are able to get out and visit kids on their high school campuses in the fall, right, or when the kids are finally able to come visit college campuses, there's going to be some where the college coaches are like, yeah, ooh, man, we took the commitment from this kid, but he's not the 6'4.5" it says on his profile. And now that we meet him in person, he's 6'1.5", right? We're going to need to make a little adjustment to his commitment status. And similarly, like some of these schools are going to see a kid and they're going to say, damn, how the hell is he committed to South Alabama, right? Like he's a kid who should be committed to like Alabama, not South Alabama. And so I think there's going to be a lot of sort of finding its level probably come the fall when visits are allowed again. And that's my hunch. We know for a fact too, like some of these kids are trying to commit. I talked to some coaches the other day. They're telling me they all got the same message from a kid wanting to commit about how much he loves their school and hey, I'm ready to commit, coach. And they compared notes, and the kid had sent the message to like 4 schools. And then we saw later that Sunday night that one of the schools did take him, and the other coaches were laughing at it. I'm not going to name the kid because that's they're kids, but there's a lot of commitments being made right now that are based on really kind of shaky information and even shakier bond.
All right. Well, with your expertise then, let's talk 2 schools that we've noticed from afar. One, Tennessee is gobbling up a bunch of recruits that are in the 4- and 5-star category that we have not seen Tennessee gobble up like that since Philip Fulmer had it rolling. And also, Florida State has really hit the transfer portal and brought in a bunch of guys. Do you like the quality of the players that Tennessee is recruiting and that Florida State has brought in via transfer?
So Tennessee first. I do like the quality of the players they have. I really like their quarterback, Caden Salter. Tennessee's got a really, really nice recruiting staff. It's a bunch of young guys. They're very aggressive. I think they were smart to kind of jump on the Zoom trend with recruits early on, and I think that their staff had the foresight to see what was happening. And so they're doing a really good job. I also wrote a piece saying there's basically no in Tennessee is going to keep the number 2 class in the country. They had 12 3-stars in their class. The number 2 class typically only has 3 3-stars, right? And the number 2 class, the record of those teams on the field, you usually need to go about 11-1. Tennessee is probably not going to go 11-1 this year, if I had to guess, because they got to play Georgia, Florida, Bama, and Oklahoma. But they still have a pretty good chance to have a top 10 class. As far as Florida State's transfer stuff, I think Florida State has done a nice job of plugging holes. I don't project those transfers to be superstars for them. But for the most part, my research shows, other than quarterbacks, transfers don't typically end up as superstars. But if you're smart and active in the portal, you can oftentimes plug some holes or help to mitigate some of your weaknesses. And I think that's probably what they've done here.
Anybody else that you're seeing, I liked how you pointed out Tennessee doing the Zoom and being aggressive there. What else has happened either on a positive of a school that is like Tennessee that's done that, or somebody that was late to it and maybe it's affected them already?
Sure. So some positives. North Carolina has really benefited from a great year of in-state talent. This is probably the best North Carolina year in terms of kids in that state that I can remember. And we do think that teams in the COVID era are kind of benefiting from like having a really nice talent base closer to home, perhaps even more so than they already do, because they're a little bit like stay close to home. Do you really want to go thousands of miles away during this era? But then also we're seeing Minnesota, and they're off to a really hot start. And yet a lot of their kids in their class have not visited them, but they've done a good job of doing virtual tours over Zoom, and PJ Fleck can really recruit. Now we'll see if they keep these kids come the fall, but they're off to a pretty good start. It's hard for me to really say negatives right now because you have to kind of know which teams are willing to accept commits from players who haven't visited them and which teams aren't. And I will tell you, like, if you look at the rankings and you see like, oh, this past national champion is down there at 45 or 50, there's a pretty good chance that a lot of kids they just said, no, we have the cachet to not screw around with these sort of half-ass commitments. We're going to wait and make sure this is a real commitment, so our board doesn't look all messed up when the visit season actually opens up again.
Talking with Bud Elliott of 24/7 Sports, also co-host of Nolecast. You can follow him on Twitter at Bud Elliott, the number 3. We don't do a lot of this, but you talk to a lot more people than we do. Gut feeling of the people you talk to in terms of when the college football season starts. Do more of them think it will start on time or it will start late?
I think more of them think it will start late, but I think the majority think it will still start in the fall. So if we split the difference, I think the most common thing I would hear would be sort of that, like, start in October, play some of your September games in December, and still have the thing wrapped up by, early mid-February, if that makes sense. Some people think it starts in the spring. Some people think it starts on time, but there's a good number who think it's probably going to be delayed a little bit.
I don't think it'd be the worst thing in the world, by the way, if every conference just kind of fended for themselves. I mean, obviously the coronavirus is different depending on where it is you live. What if we didn't have a national champion this year? Or what if we ended up, whenever it is that the college season ended, if some conferences played their games earlier than others, and if we went for 1 year, we went old school and we voted like we used to, AP, UPI, and what have you. If we just had a vote, I mean, for 1 year, Bud, do you think the sport could survive, going back to 1977?
I think it absolutely could survive. Now here's what I don't know if they can survive. Like, some of these schools are really like that basically they get by on student fees. Their athletic departments really need campuses to not be closed. And so, we're seeing some of these athletic directors come out and say, oh, no, look, just because courses are going to be online in the fall, it doesn't mean the library's closed, right? We're still going to need these student fees to roll in, because some of these athletic departments, I mean, they're really reliant on those built-in student fees. The one thing we get from athletic directors is they don't want to play a shortened season. That their budgets are based on getting all 12 regular season games in. But starting at different times is I think on the table, especially if there's not an incentive for some conferences to wait. But I do think that if it's feasible for them to wait and all start on the same time, and they can see a light at the end of that tunnel, that they will try to collectively work together. Right. I don't think the SEC has obviously kind of put out there, hey, we could start whatever we want type thing. I don't think that's what they want to do, though. I do think that they want to try and work together with everybody. Now, if everybody's all a mess, then I get it. But I don't think that they're itching to start on time and just tell everybody else, y'all do your own thing.
Well, and Bud, we've talked about this a lot, and I know it really doesn't matter in the big boy college football world, but the MACs, the Mountain West, the group of 5 conferences, they're the ones that are incredibly reliant on student fees. How bad could it be for some of those schools? We've always talked in a big picture, would the big conferences just take the ball and go do their own thing? Could they have to because of this? Because I'm wondering how I keep referring to MAC schools because I'm a Michigan native, but I know how much Central Michigan's attendance of student attendance is down and how reliant they are upon fees from students for their athletic department. How do some of these schools survive this year if they don't have a football team and don't have kids on campus?
I don't know how they do it other than, if you're not generating, you have to cut, right? And that doesn't mean cutting football, but it could mean cutting other sports. I wonder if this doesn't sort of spur a little bit of a conversation about taking another look at either Title IX or how we count football against Title IX, right? Because the number of scholarships required on the other side to balance out football is really significant, and it's just not a great business model to have to support that many number of sports that don't make any money. Now, granted, they'll say it's not a business. But what are you talking about business model? But I think we all kind of know the deal there. I don't know how they survive without student fees. So I think there will be a pretty good push to still somehow collect those student fees. And if you're a parent out there of a kid going to college, you see all the university presidents stumping and being like, oh, we're going to have classes in the fall. I think a lot of that is because they need to make sure they get your deposit.
Yep.
Right. The language might change a little bit come up when all those deposits are already in.
Yep, it's to make sure that they keep enrollment as up as they can and they fill up those dorm rooms, at least with deposits, as much as they can. But a final question, middle of next week is expected to have the one-time transfer vote for football and for basketball. This obviously would be a big deal where kids would not have to sit out a year. From the people that you talk to, are the coaches okay with this, or are they vehemently against it?
I think that they are against it, but not as against as they used to be. I'm expecting it to pass, but it will not go into effect for the 2020 season. They basically used the COVID situation to sort of kick the can down the road a little bit and give themselves some more time to figure out exactly how it will work. I do think the one positive thing, though, is that the coaches are not going to be in doubt about the whole waiver process anymore. It used to be like they would complain constantly, this guy got a waiver, but this guy didn't. And now it's just, okay, if it's your first-time transfer, you're good. If it's not, then you'll need a waiver. And there's not that many guys who coaches actually want who have transferred multiple times anyway. So it's basically a one-time shot. They don't like it, but I don't think they hate it quite as much as they used to.
Bud, congratulations on the new gig. You're big time, and yet you still take our calls. We really appreciate it. All the best to you and the family. Stay safe, and hopefully we can talk before the season kicks off.
Let's do it, guys. Y'all are the best.
Bud Elliott, he's the national recruiting analyst, and he is the brains behind 24/7 Sports. You can follow Bud on Twitter at Bud Elliott, the number 3, and he still co-hosts Nolecast. So he still gets his broadcasting fix. Bud Elliott, kind enough to join us, and he's joined us on a regular basis every week throughout the college football season for the last couple of years, and hopefully we can make that arrangement again. Bud Elliott joining us here on Miller and Moulton. What I wonder, by the way, about the last topic we brought up, if it may not officially go into effect if it passes, the Mulligan rule, if you will, the one-time transfer rule, kids can just say, I'm out of here and leave and not have to sit out a year. That may not go into effect until the 2021 sports year, 21-22. But I wonder, Mark, if everybody's waivers is going to get approved this spring because of the coronavirus. I wonder, even though the rule may not be in effect, but I wonder if you're the NCAA, do you really want to be going through every case right now? Or are you going to be inclined to just say yes or no?
Well, it's funny because it became official today, even though you announced this, I don't know, a month ago. It's all Groundhog's Day. But the young lady from Ohio State that transferred to FGCU, that became official yesterday, I believe.
Right.
She's got to sit out a year.
Well,
if this well, that's my question to you. If this passes, does she not?
Well, that's what we're going to find out. They also signed an Eastern Michigan transfer.
Right.
Who averaged 12 points a game as a freshman, 3 years of eligibility left. They'd love for her to be eligible right away. As of this week, both these players are going to have to sit out next year. But I do know there is the hope, even if this rule does not go into effect for another year, but there is the hope that because of the coronavirus that the NCAA is basically going to just give everybody a waiver. That they're not even going to examine the cases. They're going to be like, listen, we can't be bothered. We got enough on our plate. All right. If you want a waiver, we'll give it to you. You know, you transferred, you're eligible. Boom.
That's kind of what I thought. I mean, that was because I don't like the arbitrary you can play, you can't stuff.
Right.
I just don't like it.
Right. Well, once Justin Fields was able to immediately play at Ohio State, honestly, that's when I know in the college football world they said, okay, we got to do something.
Absolutely.
We've got to do something.
And that's the case in my head that I keep thinking of. I mean, yeah, the baseball player yelled a racially insensitive comment. There's no doubt. They kicked the kid off the team and kicked out of the school.
Right.
So if the university didn't handle that the right way, someone tell me what the right way is.
And he stayed on campus for 3 more months and then declared that I just don't feel safe here.
Right.
It's a hostile
which is bull.
And the NCAA went, all right, we don't want to get.
We're not going to fight that fight.
Right, we're not going to fight this fight. So,
but we all know it's bull. All he was doing was trying to play immediately, and I don't blame the kid. I'm not at all. But because one kid can lawyer up, which who the hell's paying for these attorneys is a whole different question. But one kid's able to lawyer up and become eligible, but one kid's not able to, can't afford to lawyer up, and then they're ineligible. It's a crock.
Well, and they started granting so many waivers that when all of a sudden they would stop the occasional kid, it would stun everybody. It'd be like, what are you doing? And why this one?
Well, and some of the kids that they weren't allowing was just ridiculous.
Right. And especially since there were family illnesses involved and it was all legit and these weren't star players.
The basketball kid at Ohio State is the one that comes to mind. That everybody, including Ohio State,
said, please
let him play.
Right. He's a good guy. This is for legit reasons. Okay, we're completely behind this. And the NCAA said no.